Dear students, I welcome you in the online classes organized by ISP on the subject of Pakistani literature in English. Dear students, as you know, we started our component of course from an overview of Pakistani fiction in English. And then we had gone through 3 pieces of fiction, that is, The Crow-Eaters by Pepsi Sitwa, The Heart Divided by Mumtaz Shahnawaz, and Immigrant Journeys by Abdullah Hussain. So with these 3 novels, we have completed the portion of fiction in our course. And now we are stepping into the world of poetry. And we are going to study Pakistani poetry in English. Dear students, as you know, when we were in the world of fiction, and as I have mentioned, we have gone through 3 pieces of fiction. We have also studied some of their features. For example, feminism was one of the features, or the displacement and loss of identity or identity crisis was one of the features of Immigrant Journeys by Abdullah Hussain. Similarly, in The Crow-Eaters, there was the theme of traditional Parsi family, and there were the characteristics of this community in that piece of fiction. Now, this is our lecture number 8, and as I have told you that we are stepping into the world of Pakistani poetry in English. In this lecture, I am going to give you an overview of Pakistani poetry in English. We will start from pre-partition because there are certain poets, and these were the Muslim poets, but who belonged to United India, but later on they migrated to Pakistan. And they are very prominent poets. That is why I am starting this overview from pre-partition. And we will move forward up to 80s in this lesson of today. Let us have a look at the lecture outline. This is an overview of Pakistani poetry in English from pre-partition to 80s. And dear students, at the end I would set an exercise for you which will be based upon this lecture. So let us step into the world of Pakistani poetry in English. The start of Pakistani poetry in English cannot be understood without understanding the tradition of ghazal in the subcontinent. We know that the tradition of ghazal in Urdu poetry is one of the strongest traditions in any kind of poetry. And Pakistani poetry in English has close attachment with this tradition of ghazal in the Urdu poetry in the subcontinent. The ghazal is essentially a lyrical poetry on the themes of love, faith, man's relationship with God, and eroticism. So these are the main themes which are normally discussed in ghazal. And it is a lyrical kind of poetry. And we, all of us, are well aware about these themes. It consists of couplets bound to each in a regular pattern of rhyme and rhythm, but having different themes. So, ghazal consists of couplets and they are bound together to each other by the pattern of rhyme and rhythm. But we know that each couplet may have different themes. Ghazal expresses two themes. Two prominent themes of ghazal are love between the poet and his beloved, and then the second one is the divine love. So these are the two main themes of ghazal. The romantic self-pitying sensibility of the ghazal poets had become the distinctive features of the ethos of the Indian Urdu-speaking Muslims. So ghazal is sometimes seems to be the representative of the ethos of the Indian Muslims, especially Urdu-speaking Muslims, and its romanticism and how the self-pitying sensibility is expressed in ghazal and by the ghazal poets. It has become synonymous with the ethos of the Indian Urdu-speaking Muslims. With this ethos in the background, the first Muslim poets, these are the first Muslim poets in English, Shahid Sohrawardi and Ahmad Ali started writing. So this ethos and this background of ghazal as the expression of this ethos by keeping this ethos in the background, the first Muslim poets in English, Shahid Sohrawardi and Ahmad Ali started writing. I hope that you are now well aware of with the name of Ahmad Ali at least. And he is famous for his novel, Twilight in Delhi. Sohrawardi has much in common with the poets of the ghazal. We know that the ghazal poets had some common themes that we have just discussed: love, fate, sacrifice, sorrow. And Sohrawardi, as the English poet, has much common with the poets of the ghazal. He wrote verse from 1911 to 1937. His friend, beloved, is similar to the conventional beloved of the ghazal. We know that we can by and large see a kind of conventional beloved in the ghazal poetry. And this beloved is most of the time addressed as friend, and mostly it is expressed in masculine pronoun. And what is the picture of this conventional beloved of the ghazal? Indifferent, fickle, showing a casual lack of concern, and the most beautiful. So these are the common features that we would find in the conventional beloved of the ghazal. And Sohrawardi expresses and represents the same kind of beloved. His later poetry shows a change of attitude. And what is that change? He becomes slightly cynical, mocking, and unsentimental. So this is the change that we can identify in his later poetry, that he was not as sentimental as he was in his earlier poetry. Secondly, his tone is mocking, and he is slightly cynical. If I could read a few lines from the poetry of Shahid Surwardi, then you may guess how he presents his beloved similar to the conventional beloved of the ghazal. Dear students, as we do not have space for such kind of poem to be presented in this lecture, so you will have to content yourself with my reading of that poetry. Oh friend, if the hour would strike now, as strike it must, and you gathering your heavy hair, shaking intoxication from your brow, trample my longing in the dust, and not turning once, walk your triumphal way today. So even from these lines you can guess that how he is trying to present his beloved cruel, unkind, like the beloved we have had in ghazal poetry. Ahmad Ali is the second name, and he also belongs to pre-partition and partition phase. Shows this change of attitude. So his earlier poetry was also very sentimental, like his novel, but we can detect and identify that he also goes through this change of attitude with the passage of time. He published 8 poems in 1960 under the title of Purple Gold Mountain, and later brought the total to 60. So he was a prolific poet, although we mostly identify him as a fiction writer. He is influenced by the English Romantic tradition, the Chinese lyric tradition, and the Urdu literary tradition. So these three traditions have influenced Ahmad Ali poetry. His dominant themes are nostalgia, sense of loss, and the consciousness of loneliness. And we can see that even in his fiction, we normally count the same themes of nostalgia, sense of loss of tradition, as well as of loneliness. The third name in this list is Itrat Hussain Zubair. He wrote between 1945 and 1964. So he is the poet after the partition. He is influenced by the metaphysical poets like Donne. His themes are being, existence, death, and the nature of love or experience. So he is a kind of poet who was influenced and impressed by the metaphysical poets of English language, and that is one of those we know is Donne. If I could read some of the lines of his poetry, then you would be able to guess and estimate how he was influenced by the metaphysical poets of English poetry. No soaring wings, no singing strings in half light. No wild love, no moonlit ties in dim twilight. No Grecian faces, no alien worship in dead of night. Only the wind moans and sighs in the desolation of the broken circle. So these were some of the lines from Zubairi's poetry. Now, Pakistani poets in English did not respond to the political and historical changes in Pakistan. We have the same complaint when we going through the fiction because there were so many historical and political events in our history, and these events have shaken us. But unfortunately, these events have not shaken the sensitive lot of poets because we do not find response from the poets, Pakistani poets in English, towards these political and historical changes. Romantic tradition was abandoned, but for the modernist, not for real socialist was. So, as we have mentioned, that our base of English poetry in Pakistan was on the ghazal poetry, on romantic tradition. With the passage of time, we identify that this romantic tradition was abandoned, but it was not abandoned for real socialist works as it should be. But most of the future poets, the poets of post-partition, were impressed by the English tradition poetry. The major themes of Pakistani poets have been conflict between tradition and modernity, alienation of the artist from the society. So these were the major themes. Another name in this list is Shahid Hussain. He uses both symbols and logical narration to convey meanings. His famous poems are Karbala and A Speculation. One of the most prominent name in this tradition of Pakistani poetry in English is of Zulfikar Bhutto. As we have the name of the same poet in the list of fiction writers as well, so you would be well familiar with this name now. As we know, he was born in Sialkot, lived in Bombay before immigrating to England. The immigration has a direct effect on his poetry, and in fiction we see that this influence was indirect. However, his poetry was directly affected by this immigration to England. What was this effect? He felt himself cut off from his roots and an alien. This consciousness forms the core of his poetry. It is expressed in across India. These are the names of some of his poems. February 1955, The Loss of India, 1964, Jets of Orange, 1964, The Violent West, 1972, A Memory of Asia, and this poem was published in 1984. Ghosh is the only English poet from Pakistan to have written poems on Hindu-Muslim rights after partition and the baby's independence is a good poem on this theme. So, as we have been complaining that there is lack of response from the English poets of Pakistan towards historical and political events. But here we can see one example, and that is of Zulfikar Bhutto, who has written some poems about Hindu-Muslim rights after partition. If I could read some lines of this poem for you, that would give you an idea of how he was writing about this these Hindu-Muslim rights and about the bloodshed of the partition. The heart is free, people cried. What if truth runs out like blood? We have our independence. The blood of India ran out with my youth. So, this is an example how he was writing about this bloodshed and how after this bloodshed we got our independence. So this blood was actually the price that we have paid for this partition. Zulfikar Ghosh has also written poems on political and social themes, but he responds to the West than Pakistani problems. So when we go through his poetry, and there are certain themes, political as well as social, but these political and social themes are related to West, not to the Pakistani problem. Ghosh became complex in style in his later poems. So this was the change that we detect and identify in his poetry. That with the passage of time, especially in his later poems, we detect some complexity in his style. Another name in this list is Makki Qureshi. She has used the theme of the loss of social identity with sophistication in her poem. So the theme is of almost same that has been taken by so many Pakistani poets, especially when they have migrated to other countries. But this Makki Qureshi is a poetess who has identified and presented this theme with some kind of sophistication. And the names of her poems are Kitten, Gracious Lady, Marriage. Another prominent name in this list is of Kalim Umar. He expresses emotions through an ironical dryness of tone, symbols, and direct narration. These are the techniques through which he expresses his emotion. He also wrote on political themes. For example, in the poem March 1972, and another poem, It Did Not Really Happen. These are his responses to the events which led to the emergence of Bangladesh in 1971. And Kalim Umar is one of the prominent poets who was writing in Pakistan in English language. Now, here is the list of some other poets who wrote in English, and they have different themes. And we have also mentioned some of their poems as well. These are Adrian, then Salman Tariq Qureshi with the poem Attitude, Mansoor Y. Sher, Nadir Hussain with the poems Door, Wedding, then M.K. Hamid, Shuja Nawaz, Azizul Hakim, Sayyid Ali Ashraf, and Tariq Yazdani Malik. So this is the list of poets who came between partition and 80s. The best English language poets of Pakistan have been published in the anthologies. What are the names of these anthologies? Are the collection of poems in which these poets have published their poems. One of them is First Voices. It was published in 1965. Then The New Harmony, published in 1970. Pieces of Eight, published in 1971. Wordfall, published in 1975, The Blue Wind, published in 1984. Dear students, with this list of anthologies, we come to the end of our today's lecture. We are still going to discuss the overview of Pakistani poetry from 80s onward, and this would be done in the next lecture, and hopefully we would discuss Rafat, Daoud Kamal and Hashmi as well. We know that these are the three prominent names in this list of Pakistani poets who were writing in English. So I have not included these three prominent names in today's lecture. I would like to discuss these three poets in our next lecture. Now, on the basis of this lecture, I have set an exercise for you. Write an overview of Pakistani poetry in English from pre-partition to 80s. But note it that you are going to exclude Tawfiq Rafat, Daoud Kamal and Alamgir Hashmi because they also belong to the same era. But we have not yet discussed their poetry. So you will keep them out of your discussion and you will write an overview of Pakistani poetry in English from pre-partition to 80s. That's all from my side for today. Stay safe, stay blessed.